It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you gotta do that.
How did you feel during the freak-offs when Sean beat you?
Worthless, just like dirt, like I didn't matter to him. But that I was nothing, like absolutely nothing.
But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
Cuddy, are you nervous to testify today?
What are you expecting today?
Big week this week.
I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
It is a huge day in New York City. The federal government expected to rest its case in Diddy's federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial. The Diddy defense team not calling any witnesses. So is that a smart move? Plus, Barry Morphew not fighting extradition after being indicted for his wife Suzanne's murder. So we're asking, how will prosecutors try to convict Morphew of murder? Also coming up for you this hour, the accused daughter killer. New photos emerging of Travis Decker as the manhunt continues this morning. And time is ticking for Sarah Boone. She's got only a few days left to file her appeal. One of her many former attorneys is joining us live this morning. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for what I like to call some coffee and some court? This is the program where we get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big Court TV live day ahead. And oh, is it going to be a huge day. So grab your coffee or tea, whatever you like in the morning or afternoon if you're across the pond. It's time for my opening statement. Is it a designed display of confidence? Sean Diddy Combs' legal team is indicating that they don't plan to call any witnesses. None. My friends, that is a big deal, especially in a big case like this one. So what's the Diddy team doing here? Is the Diddy team flexing? Are they trying to signal confidence in their case and a lack thereof in the government's? What I want to know is, was Diddy this confident when he made this decision as he was when he rejected the government's two plea offers? To be clear, the defense team is going to be entering some exhibits into case evidence, but they will not be calling one witness to the stand to do it. And that includes, of course, Diddy himself. So, smart move not to call Diddy, that is for sure. But no other witnesses? My friends have been thinking about this. You know, Diddy's got so much money, he could get the very best expert witnesses in the country, around the world, to come in and testify here. He could put on a robust, extensive, and probably very effective defense case if he so chose. But the fact that he and his legal team have strategically determined that the best option for them is to argue that the government just hasn't met its burden of proof is likely an indication of their confidence in Diddy's innocence. Now, whether this decision will prove to be effective for him overall, that of course remains to be seen. And we are going to find out together, my friends. I'll be in New York covering the closing arguments and the verdict. And I'll have so much more to share with you later this week. That is my opening statement, though, this morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
The defendant came off the side of the bushes and was approaching me, and I told him to get the F out of here, and then I proceeded to tell him not to come near me. I used the can of WD-40 to distance myself and kind of just started spraying it in his direction, which stopped him in his tracks.
In Connecticut, we've got testimony resuming in the Preppy Party murder trial for defendant Raul Valley. That begins at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. In Florida, we are tracking a brand new case for you. We're calling it the Missing Boyfriend Murder Trial. This is for defendant Christopher Davis. He's accused of killing his boyfriend, Barry, and Barry's body has never been found. Now, that begins at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And in New York City, the case I was just talking about, the government expecting to rest in Diddy's trial. This is going to be a huge day in New York City. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is there outside of the courthouse with the latest for us.
Good morning to you, Julie. Big week for the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking case. The prosecution is expected to rest today. And then we do expect defense counsel to put on a very short case, not calling any witnesses, but rather just reading some evidence into the record. Then we expect defense counsel to rest. Jurors also viewed text messages Jane sent to a sex worker in which she expressed a desire to get together. The last government witness will return to the stand today. Special Agent Cerciello. Cross will conclude and then redirect. He has been testifying about the accuracy of charts detailing dozens of sexual encounters involving Jane, Combs, and escorts. While he was on the stand, those sex videos were also played for the jury, and also jurors viewed texts that Sean Combs sent to his employees discussing flights for the escorts as well as hotel options. We also heard Sean's voice, audio messages he made to assistants like Christina Quorum and others were played for the jury, in which he is discussing those hotel nights. And Julie, talking about timing here, on Wednesday, we expect that charge conference to take place. And then on Thursday, the closing arguments. Both sides have indicated that they expect to take 4 hours each. Proceedings get back underway at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's the latest from here in Lower Manhattan. Julie, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks to Kelly Craft for that early update. So let's talk about the Diddy defense team decision. How about that alliteration right there? To not call any witnesses. What does that say to you? We got a great power panel standing by. Let me bring them in now. In the studio with me, so happy to have former district attorney, current criminal defense attorney in the private sector, Matthew Mangino. Joining me remotely, I have former prosecutor and professor at Florida International University. She's the director of prosecution projects there, Melba Pearson, and the former co-host of the Hot 97 morning show. Diddy used to come on her show, Lisa G. Good morning to you all. All right, so this decision not to call any witnesses, what does that say to us? Lisa G., would you start us off, please?
I knew you were going to come to me, Julie. When I heard that yesterday, just a reminder, I'm not an attorney, I'm a radio personality. When I heard the defense was not bringing up any witnesses, I said, this guy is toast. That's it. He's guilty. He's going to jail. That was my honest thought the second I heard it. I don't think he has a chance.
And you, Lisa, you got two sensational former prosecutors here on the panel with you. I'm sure they're in agreement, perhaps, with that decision. So let's get it. Matt Mangino in the studio with me. Your thoughts on that, please.
Well, it was a surprise. We had heard about a pretty substantial list of witnesses. Then it was pruned down a bit. Now it's none at all. At first blush, I see confidence on the defense part because, you know, we have racketeering, we have sex trafficking, and we know Diddy's not a good guy. I mean, that's clear. The defense has conceded that he's not a good guy. But is he guilty of racketeering? Is he guilty of sex trafficking? Those are the issues. And I think this comes down to, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about it in the argument from the defense, consent. Were these willing participants? Did they want to be there? Of course, he's abusive, but that's not the charge here. It's sex trafficking, racketeering, and promoting prostitution.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, big distinction there, yeah. Melba Pearson, last but certainly not least on this panel, your thoughts on what this is signaling with the Diddy team?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone, and a special good morning to Lisa G, Hot 97 all day. But having to do with the defense's decision not to call any witnesses, I'm actually not surprised because really, who are you going to call that's not going to be really an improper character witness? And I think the defense did a good enough job in their cross-examinations of the prosecution witnesses to be like, well, this text message might show that there was consent, and this text message was loving, and you were a former employee of Diddy's. You still have warm feelings for him, right? You don't hate him, right? And enough assistants got on the stand and said, yes, the time was complicated, but I still have warm feelings, et cetera, et cetera. So the defense is going to use those nuggets to be able to say, listen, yes, he's a horrible boyfriend, but he is not guilty of these other charges. But again, the prosecution really laid the foundation and all the building blocks are there. The key, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, the prosecution is going to have to lip sync for their life. I mean, they need to give the closing of all closings witnesses to be able to really show the jury, like, listen, this, I know you're thinking racketeering means mobster. This is what it means in this instance, and really take their hands and walk them down the path to a guilty verdict. But if they don't do it in closing, it's not going to happen. Everything rises and falls on their closing argument, pulling it all together.
Yeah, I love what you just said there, Melba. Thank you for that. Is simplifying it. They really need to make it simple, because I think anybody, even for lawyers, because let's be honest, there are so many different kinds of lawyers, and, you know, unless you have experience, you know, trying a racketeering case, and understand, you know, the elements that must be proven and how you do them, the predicate crimes, and it can be very confusing. I could see how it would be very daunting for a juror to go, oh, I don't know if I see this. We're in Diddy's, you know, bedroom life, you know. But you're right, Melba. If they can simplify it and help everyone understand the elements of the crimes, I've said before that in terms of, has the government proven it to the letter of the law? Yes, based on what I've seen in transcripts, all of that, they've proven this. But will the jury see it? That I don't know. I don't know if they're looking at this as Matthew said, you know, are they looking at this as an abusive boyfriend, you know, violent guy, drug user, you know, whatever the case may be, and not a trafficker or racketeer. Let me play a clip. This is one of his voicemails, one of the rare moments throughout the trial where we get to hear Diddy. Let's watch.
Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you can be mad, I can have a spat, we can have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice.
Ooh. Get on your job. Lisa G, that was a moment, wasn't it, in this case, when the world heard that, huh? Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the major points of this case is if the jurors believe these women, and I'm hopeful that they try to understand why these women kept going back, left the voicemails they did. They were psychologically controlled by this man. And so I'm not the attorney in the case, but I'm crossing my fingers that the jurors try and hopefully understand that what was going on. They did not want to be there. He had psychological and financial control over these women. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
Right. Well said, Lisa. Matt, let me go to you next, please. Something I've thought a lot about when it comes to the strength of the charges. Where do you think the government's case is strongest? We've got 5 charges here, racketeering conspiracy being number 1, and then we've got sex trafficking and transportation to commit prostitution pertaining to Cassie Ventura, and then the same other 2 charges pertaining to Jane, the girlfriend, up to present day. Where do you think the biggest strength is with the government?
Well, I think number one, the promoting prostitution, and then tying that into the idea of racketeering and the sex trafficking. So I think those are the most important things. I think the prosecution has done a good job of laying it out, and they've been very methodical, and they've done it through a series of witnesses. But as you said earlier, Julie, can they pull that all together now in a closing statement? Because what's easy for the jurors to understand is that, yes, he's an abusive guy, yes, he's not a good guy, but does all the other stuff come together to show that he's in fact involved in racketeering and in sex trafficking? The defense is simple. It's consent. The prosecution is more difficult. It's trying to prove very difficult elements of sex trafficking and, you know, the other related charges.
Right. I like how you said that, Matt, like trying to almost prove a negative. It's almost like they have to, you know, disprove something here. Melba, dovetailing off of that point, curious your thoughts on that, having so much prosecutorial experience. Do you feel like it's almost like the government is, you know, on a bit of a defensive venture here too, in addition to carrying their burden?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, they really have to hone in on the lack of consent, of the credibility and all of the different aspects that pulled it together, like Capricorn Clark and all the different, victims, and talking about their testimony. But I think their strongest charges are going to be promoting prosecution and everything having to do with Cassie. They're really going to have to rehabilitate Jane in closing arguments.
Well said, Melba. Lisa G., last question to you, please. You've told us before, but we just can't get enough of it. So will you tell us again, for anybody who might have missed our past segments with you, when Diddy would come into your studio to come onto your show, what was that like, being around him?
It was like a sandstorm. It was like the biggest tornado you saw in the Midwest. He had, at the time, this negative energy swirling around him. And I've said this now for decades, and my opinion has not changed. And now that I'm listening to the trial, I'm thinking, where did he have the time to do all this? He was running a business, and all these people who are so complicit that work for him, that set up these meetings and ordered the baby oil. I feel charges should be brought up against them. I'm very emotional about this whole thing because I've known him for so long. Not personally, but I've known about him for so long.
Sure. Well, and you raise an excellent point. Our attorneys on the panel know, there could be charges for many of these people. We know there's been immunity agreements had for some of them to give testimony. So yeah, clean hands. We're not seeing a lot of that in this case. Yeah, there's a lot of people that had some involvement here. Lisa G., we have to say goodbye to you, let you get on with your day. Always a pleasure to have your insight. Thank you kindly. Melba and Matthew are coming with us. Please do the same at home. Here's what's next on Opening Statements.
Justice. Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back.
We believe that she's not alive.
After more than 3 years, the remains of Suzanne Morphew had been found.
The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree.
Barry Morphew not fighting extradition after he was arrested in Arizona, accused of his wife Suzanne's murder again. So this time, will prosecutors be able to prove it? Plus, the search for the man who allegedly killed his own 3 young girls is still on this morning. Police releasing new images to help with the manhunt for Travis Decker. Sean Diddy Combs. We're previewing each day's proceedings in the trial that has captivated the nation. And a closer look at true crime cases across the country.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Friday nights, the WNBA is on Island. 2 #1 draft picks face off as Caitlin Clark and the Fever take on Paige Beckers and the Wings. Then, reigning champs Liberty head to Phoenix to battle the Mercury. Coverage begins Friday night at 7. Find Ion wherever you watch. Ion, it's on.
And make it count.
The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. Law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne.
As authorities in Colorado continue fighting for justice for Suzanne Morphew, her husband and her alleged killer remains in custody awaiting extradition. Inconsistent statements from Barry Morphew surrounding his wife's disappearance have helped investigators refocus the case right back on him. Authorities in Arizona this morning are working with officials in Colorado on extraditing Morphew. He plans to not fight it. Now, his attorney, David Beller, had this to say after he was arrested, saying, quote, "Yet again, the government allows their predetermined conclusion to lead their search for evidence. Barry Morphew maintains his innocence. The case has not changed, and the outcome will not either," end quote. Now, Suzanne Morphew vanished back in 2020 on Mother's Day. 49 years old, a mother of 2 daughters. The last known person to see her was her hubby, Barry. Now, her remains were found in 2023 in a shallow grave, and an autopsy was able to be performed. Thank goodness for that. Let's talk about how prosecutors this time can potentially prove the case that Barry allegedly killed Suzanne. I want to bring in our guests. So thrilled to have in the studio with me former district attorney and now practicing criminal defense attorney in the private sector, Matthew Mangino, and forensic pathologist, Dr. Priya Banerjee. Great to see you both here.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. So with this autopsy, we got information about drugs in Suzanne Morphew's system, and there was a suspicion that a deer tranquilizer might have been used because investigators found a little plastic cap in, I believe, the washing machine or in the dryer when they did the big search on Barry's home. And it was, oh boy, he's a deer farmer. Could he have done something sinister with this drug called BAM? Dr. Priya, the autopsy showed it was in her system. Talk to us, please, about what that would do to somebody's body.
Yeah, so there's no normal human use for this cocktail. It is paralyzing for big deer, right? So it's gonna, if she's injected with it, administered, she's done. Really, there's an opioid, it's basically a big tranquilizer. And so she's not gonna lose consciousness, be paralyzed, just like you would want a deer that you're chasing. So probably so strong and probably could overdose her right there.
Wow. Would it be instant death with that? Does someone suffer? Would you kind of walk us through what you think, your best educated guess of what could have
that's
happened?
a really important point. We don't know because this is not normally used in humans.
Wow.
Right? So there's no like studies of what's normal, what's abnormal. So I would say probably she would overdose quickly. Think about the dosage you need to take down a deer, and a petite woman, that's not safe at all.
Right. Really great insight, Dr. Priya. Thank you for that. Sure. Matthew Mangino, turning to you for the legal parts of this, you certainly understand what it's like when you have a no-body case, and first time around for prosecutors, it was. We didn't know where Suzanne Morphew was. Her husband was saying maybe she's still alive somewhere. You know, there was hope and faith exhibited by her children and her husband, Barry. Now that we know she's deceased, is the autopsy a game changer?
Well, I think certainly having a body, having an autopsy changes the game. Number one, as Dr. Priya said, I mean, you have this deer tranquilizer in her body. That's not normal. Okay, so we know now there's some possible connection between what was found at the home and ultimately what was in her body. I mean, this case has changed dramatically. You went from a very difficult case, trying to prove a homicide without a body, to now all of a sudden having a body, having an autopsy. It's really, truly a game changer in terms of this prosecution.
Yeah, most definitely. Gosh. And when we think about what you just noted, Dr. Priya, about how we don't have research on this, right? We don't have experience on that, you know. So tell me, in terms of what you think might be beneficial for these prosecutors to do in terms of educating themselves, what do you think would be best in terms of how they can prepare for the case to help the jury understand what might have gone on with Suzanne?
Sure. I think it's twofold. First of all, we don't have the full autopsy report. I'm sure my colleagues have used other modalities like forensic anthropology to examine her bones, make sure there was no gunshot wound, stab wound that could be identified. Now, that's not perfect. But other than that, for this medication, I think you just need to study it in the veterinary side. That's where it's used in the animals, and bring it over to the human side and say, this is what it does to a huge deer. How, you know, let's translate that to the humans. And that's really, I was trying to read the research out there, and really there's none on humans because it's not indicative, you know, in us. So that's really what they're going to have to do and say, this was found in the laundry. He has experience with this. She's let's put two and two together.
Yes, yes. I love what you said about talking to a veterinarian.
Yes.
Maybe call one of them as an expert. Matthew Mangino, what do you think? Might that be beneficial for the jury?
Well, I think it would be beneficial. You want to be able to make that connection to ultimately her death in this drug that was found in her body. But I think what's different about this is this drug is not for human consumption. Okay, so something's wrong here. It shouldn't be in her body. If it was some sort of prescription drug, well, you know, could there be some other explanation? But it doesn't make sense that she has this tranquilizer used to subdue deer in her body, and that's the whole point here.
Right. I love that point, you know, because if it was something in their medicine cabinet,
absolutely,
something right prescribed to her at another point in time, Dr. Priya, and too much, you know, this is not that, right? So that's a great point.
Right.
Matt.
And given the condition of her body, they're not going to be able to quantify how much she was given. And that's not, any presence is abnormal, so it's like a yes or no. So in some ways that's good. If it was a prescription med, then the level does become important. So my understanding is they found it in her bone marrow, so deep in her system, you know. So anything is bad. So again, to tie it all back, it should not be there at all. So any detectable level this far out is abnormal.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Boy, a great insight from you both on this. This was an important conversation. Barry Morphew not fighting extradition. Smart move. He's going back to Colorado, and we'll report on what happens next. Dr. Priya Banerjee, attorney Matt Mangino, thank you kindly. Still to come here on Opening Statements. Here's what we've got.
Travis, if you're listening, this is your opportunity to turn yourself in. Do the right thing. Do what you need to do, and take accountability for your actions. We're not going to go away. We're not going to rest, and we're going to make sure we find you. You will be brought to justice.
It's been weeks now since Travis Decker allegedly murdered his 3 daughters. Police releasing new images of the suspect in order to get the public's help in getting him home to be brought to justice. Plus, suitcase killer Sarah Boone is back. The clock is ticking for her as she has just days left to appeal her murder conviction. One of her former attorneys, one of the many former attorneys, is joining us live on the show. Welcome back. In our spotlight this morning, my friends, the search goes on for Travis Decker. He's the fugitive accused of killing his 3 young daughters, and he is still on the run. Authorities are warning he might have changed his appearance while he's at it. Chelan County Sheriff Mike Morrison believes that Decker is still alive despite this 3-week search going on in Washington state. But we do know that a cadaver dog is being sent out this week to aid in that search. Decker's been the target of the manhunt since June 2nd, when deputies found his truck and the bodies of his 3 beautiful girls, Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia. They were found at a campground. I recently spoke to Sheriff Morrison about the search for Decker.
Since we've seen the senseless violence and the act towards Evelyn, Peyton, and Olivia, we certainly feel that he's a danger to the community, and we're looking forward to having him in custody.
Now, here's some new enhanced photos from the Chelan County Sheriff's Office, which show Decker shaved with a mustache and with long hair. So is this how he's been able to elude authorities for so long? Let's talk about that. Let me bring back in former homicide prosecutor and the director of prosecution projects at Florida International University, Melba Pearson, and want to welcome in private investigator, former Army intelligence officer, and retired member of the NYPD, Manuel Gomez. Manuel, I want to start with you. We know Decker served with the 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade Combat Team. Well, he was stationed in Italy. You told us previously on the show when we were analyzing his training and his background that he was trained the same way that you are. And we know you have a highly impressive set of skills that makes you sought after to do investigations all over the country and other parts of the world. What do you think he may be doing at this point in time?
Well, remember, he's theater trained, which means to survive, escape, and evade. So he's out there right now, I would say, in Canada, because it's already 3 weeks. He parked his truck, Julie, roughly less than 30 miles from the border, but had multiple entrances. The police and the sheriff's office are not qualified to find someone like this. And if you do go out there and see him to the public, he'll be wearing a bag like this, which is called a bug-out bag. And you'll also see a combat knife like this. Same one that I have.
Will you show them to us again? We had some video of the photos of Mr. Decker up, so will you show us the bag and the knife and everything again? Here we go, we got you now. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is a bug-out bag, and everything you need to survive, all right, is in here for up to 2 years. Now, this bag is roughly about 13 inches wide, okay? He has this combat knife, which will be black, which is concealable. Okay, this is a K-bar, and this is standard for special ops guys. And then if you look in the bag, what you're seeing now is you'll see the survival gear that's in there. Now, that gear, you can survive in those woods for up to 2 years on that. People keep saying, well, he's going to come out for food. No, Julie, the food is there. We will eat worms. We will eat tree bark. We will eat leaves. We will eat a squirrel. We will eat whatever's out there. That's what we're trained to do. Travis Decker needs to be hunted down by special ops teams and rangers. They need to bring in the National Guard in full force to go get him. The sheriffs are not qualified for this hunt.
Wow, this is incredible. This is fascinating hearing you talk, Manuel, and just seeing all of that. The bug-out bag, you know, you hear that term kind of thrown around, and people, oh, if I need to bug out, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, the way you've explained it to us, my gosh, just surviving out in nature, it's incredible. I have a clip when I spoke with the local sheriff there, and he touched a bit on this man's military training. Let's take a listen together.
We're not seeing a lot of criminal history. We do see that he had some time when he was in the military, and it sounds like that ended probably on terms that he wasn't expecting or wanting. But overall, in talking with other individuals, it just sounded like he was a regular person, kind of trying to figure out his way into society after his time in the military.
Mm-hmm. You know, and sadly, he had been experiencing homelessness. We know that that's a big part of this. He was homeless at the time that he had that visitation with his 3 daughters. Melba, legally, I'm curious, does that trouble you that he was able to have the visitation without the court knowing that he had a safe place to take those children?
Yes, absolutely, Julie. And as a side note, hearing Manuel describe what life on the run is like, I know I'm clearly not built for that. So, I mean, that's okay, but not even that, not even just to be funny, but also when you think about the extremes that you have to be dedicated to be able to evade and escape, that's not like, ooh, okay, this is bad, let me get to Denny's right quick. This is you're preparing to batten down the hatches and be gone for a prolonged period of time, which really speaks to the aspect of public safety and the dangerousness of this person. But to get to your point, Julie, yes, it is very concerning to me because usually as part of custody arrangements, there's some discussion of like where the kids are going to go, where the visitation is going to happen. If these are supervised visitations, where is that going to happen? Is it at a community center? Is it at a police station? Is it at a church? So that way there's other people involved. Just because you're experiencing homelessness doesn't mean you can't visit your children. The question is, how do we do that in a safe manner and in a way that's also not traumatizing to the kids? So I don't know when he lost his housing or how that did not come up as part of the case in chief. I'm sure one of the reasons why he probably didn't have custody is that instability. But again, when someone is flagged as potentially being unstable or unsafe, or being abusive, that's a case that the court has to put very tight parameters on. And not sure of the background story, but I have questions and I have concerns that didn't happen here.
Right. I had a feeling you would, Mel, but boy, thank you for that. Manuel, we've touched on this as well as we've talked about it. Those children being in his care, we have no idea how we got from point A to point B. All we knew is Mom turned them over for visitation. She has spoken out at the memorial. The little girls are Peyton, Olivia, and Evelyn, and their mom said, I truly hope that the legacy of the girls' lives lives on in everyone's hearts forever. They were incredible. And Mom got very scared when they weren't returned at the time they were to be returned, and perhaps it was too late. Manuel, how would anybody know if this guy's a danger? I'm curious your thoughts for anybody out there going, well, gosh, why would anybody kill their kids? If he did kill his kids, we don't know, but that's the allegation. How would anybody be able to possibly suspect that or prevent this, in your view?
Well, to prevent it, unfortunately, you'd have to kill a guy like this. A guy like this is used to combat, used to killing. He treated his children like we used to do to the terrorists and the Taliban. He zip-tied them. We did that all the time over there. He also bagged them, except he choked them out. This guy is suffering from PTSD, clearly from the military, because the military tactics that he used. He's lethal because of the training he's received. Now, like the sheriff said, Julie, he did not complete the training, but he received 90% of it, okay? So the amount of training that he received, he can outrun them, outfight them, and outlive them in the woods for, like I said, on this bag alone, for 2 years. And I tell America, if you see anyone wearing this bag or carrying this knife, call the police immediately, because it's him. And he will be wearing a camouflage poncho, which will cover his concealment. This is the type of standardized equipment that we have, and we're trained to make our own bug-out bags. I guarantee you, Julie, like your name is Julie, he is carrying this. There is no doubt.
Boy, that's great insight. Thank you so much. Really, really valuable stuff you both have shared. Manuel Gomez, Melba Pearson, thank you both for your time and your expertise this morning. Always a pleasure. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, will convicted killer Sarah Boone beat the deadline to appeal her conviction? One of her former attorneys joins us live next.
So then it's like, we decided to play hide and seek, right? Okay. So he gets in the suitcase. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
When did you do CPR?
This morning, when I found it.
Before you called?
Yes!
As Sean Diddy Combs faces a federal jury, Court TV's Kelly Craft is live from New York.
It was an emotional day in court.
With every development, the Diddy sex trafficking trial. Live updates on Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering.
He is the boogeyman.
So many eyes have been on Donna Adelson from the beginning.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. So then it's like, we decided to play hide and seek, right? Okay. So he gets in the suitcase. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree as charged in the information.
Now for what's tipping the scales of justice, will time run out for Sarah Boone's appeal? She's serving a sentence of life in prison for murdering her boyfriend, George Torres. And we covered her trial, as you remember, very closely. She zipped him up in a suitcase and would not let him out. The evidence showed that she also beat that suitcase with a baseball bat when he was inside of it and left him overnight to die.
This is a box. This is the box where George Torres was killed. It's a small box, 28 by 20 by 8 7/8 inches.
Now, Sarah Boone has indicated she is taking an appeal. However, that's just part of the process. There's a notice that's been posted on the docket saying she's got less than 20 days to file her brief or the appeal is dismissed. Not that she's been the easiest client, we know that. She's reportedly gone through 10 attorneys. Yes, 10, you heard me correctly. And we're lucky enough to have one of those attorneys joining us live this morning. Sarah Boone's former attorney, Frank Bankowitz, is joining us live from Florida. Frank, good morning to you. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Good morning.
Would you walk us through this process, please? Would this be it? If she misses this 20-day deadline, is it over for her and life in prison it will be?
Yes, that's basically it. If the Court of Appeals has entered an order saying she's got 20 days to file her initial brief and she fails to do it, they can dismiss the appeal and she has no recourse after.
Wow. Frank, any idea what the holdup could be? Because she seemed eager to appeal the decision.
Well, I don't know who's actually handling the appeal. I'm not sure if her trial attorney has handled it or she's been appointed at the public defender's office. Usually the public defender's office is very, very cognizant of deadlines, and because they have an appellate division. Private attorneys sometimes miss deadlines, unfortunately. Whoever's doing it can probably request an extension of that 20 days. And those extensions are normally granted at least on one occasion.
Sure. Do you think Sarah Boone will, or should I say was, as difficult with her appellate lawyer as she was with you and the other trial attorneys that tried so hard to fight for her?
Well, she's going to have a lot less access to that attorney because obviously she's serving her sentence at this point. She's in prison, probably in the women's prison in Lowell, Florida, which is near Ocala. And her public defender is somewhere in Polk County, which is probably 100 miles or so away. So, she'll have telephone contact and probably some internet contact, but it'll be very much limited to what she had previously.
Mm-hmm. Frank, do you think Sarah Boone has been her own worst enemy in so much as if she had considered some type of plea agreement with the state of Florida, that perhaps she could still be out of prison for some of her life?
Oh, yes. Yeah, she was her own worst enemy. Well, when I had the case, I had an offer which I recommended to her, which would have been in 15 years in Department of Corrections with credit for all the time she served, and she rejected that. And it's my understanding the state offered that right up till the point of trial, to the point of jury selection, and she continued to deny responsibility and order the trial, and she got a trial.
Wow. And for anybody who may need a refresher, I mean, this was around the year 2020, and she was, in for almost 5 years' time, if I remember correctly. So, as you said, credit for time served would amount to her not having to do that full 15. She'd get credit for what she's already done. Wow, that's really something. Our thanks to Frank Bankowitz. I believe we just lost his signal. I would love to ask our in-studio guest a question if we have some time. Attorney Matthew Mangino standing by. Matthew, tell me, Sarah Boone not taking that deal, what do you think as a prosecutor? How generous was that to say 15 years credit for time served? I believe she was in her mid-40s at this point in time when she rejected that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a generous plea in retrospect. We're looking back, 2020 vision is always good in terms of hindsight, looking back on something. But in this situation, she could have raised the defense of battered woman syndrome and all those sort of things. So the prosecution may have been concerned about that. There was some history of domestic violence, but going through 8 attorneys, is not going to be helpful in any way in terms of having some continuity to your defense. And now, she's on the verge of losing out on her appeal, which may have some merit in terms of the fact, don't forget the judge at one point said she loses the right to court-appointed counsel and things like that. There may be some issues here that are ripe for review on an appellate level, and you certainly don't want those to slip away at this point.
Oh, that's a really great point. Matthew Mangino, thank you so much for that. We'll look forward to having you back here at 10 a.m. We're going to do some Court TV live coverage together. And that is all for opening statements, my friends at home. You can watch this episode again if you want. Share it with your friends. We put them up on our website every day for you. Go to courttv.com. Just click on that red shows tab.